Welcome everyone to the MLC Q&A for Publishers and Administrators webinar. Thank you for joining us today. This webinar is for publishers and administrators. If you're a self-administered songwriter, you're more than welcome to join us today, but our topics will be focused primarily on publishers and administrators. By way of introduction, my name is Maurice Russell, and I'm Head of Rights Management for the MLC. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Mike Scheidman, who is Manager of Publisher Services. So for today's agenda, we're going to cover, first of all, some of the most common questions that we typically get. And then we're going to utilize a tool called Thought Exchange to facilitate the Q&A session so that we can crowdsource all of your questions and by your rating determine which topics and questions are most important to the group. So as we cover these items, you can start thinking about what questions you'd like to ask during the Q&A. So we're going to jump to a few slides. My colleague Lacey is kind enough in the background to put those up. Let's start with the role of the MLC and what we do and what we don't do. So in terms of what we do, we establish and maintain a musical works database that is public. You can go to the MLC's website and you can search the musical works database. The entire database is also available for download. The MLC administers a new blanket mechanical license for digital audio mechanicals in the US. We receive and match sound recording usage data from digital audio services, match those to musical works to determine the ownership, and then we collect and we distribute the royalties to publishers, administrators, foreign CMOs, self-administered songwriters, composers, lyricists, etc. in the US. And Mike is now going to highlight some of the things that the MLC does not do.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Maurice. So what the MLC won't be doing, we are not administering or collecting performance royalties, and we are not replacing performance rights organizations. Performance royalties are an entirely separate royalty stream from digital audio mechanical royalties that the MLC is collecting. And as I'm sure most of you know, performance royalties are typically generated when a song is played on the radio or TV or played at a public establishment like a restaurant or bar. And while on-demand streaming services like Spotify and Apple, they do generate a public performance royalty, that royalty will continue to be collected by the performance rights organizations. So as a publisher or administrator, it's most likely that you're already a member of a PRO, and that relationship is not impacted by what the MLC has been tasked with under the MMA. Similarly, we are not replacing Sound Exchange. Sound Exchange administers and collects a separate statutory license for digital performance rights and sound recordings when a song is played on non-interactive digital platforms like Pandora. They are responsible for paying artists and record labels. As Maurice pointed out, we are responsible for administering, collecting, and paying digital audio mechanical royalties related to the underlying musical composition only. We will not be administering or collecting mechanical royalties for physical products like CDs and vinyl or cassettes. That type of licensing will largely continue as it has historically and is not covered under the scope of the blanket license. The MMA also does not empower the MLC to administer or collect royalties related to audiovisual products. So any mixed use or bundled use that includes a video component is not covered under the scope of the blanket license. Again, the blanket license is limited to digital audio uses only. And finally, we will not be administering and collecting royalties generated outside of the United States. So if a DSP operates and offers a service to US consumers, the MLC is entitled to collect those royalties generated in the US under the law. However, If that same DSP also operates and offers a service to consumers outside the US, which is very typical, under the law, the MLC is not entitled to collect those royalties generated in other countries. So just to recap, the scope of the blanket license is very narrowly defined under the law, and it doesn't allow for us to administer these other rights. It's not by choice, but rather the way the law was set up, and we're required to operate within the confines of the law that established the MLC. I'll turn it back over to you, Maurice.
Thanks, Mike. And now we're going to focus our attention on some frequently asked questions to get those out of the way so that maybe we can focus on some other questions that you would like to get answers to. The first is, how will historic unmatched mechanical royalties be paid by the MLC? So on February 15th, 20 digital services transferred historical unmatched royalty money and the corresponding usage reports pertaining to those royalties to us. The DSPs now have until June 15th to deliver the remaining data for their unmatched royalties, including data regarding any partial payments made where the rights holders for some of the shares of work were known and others were unknown. We cannot begin to determine how much is owed to a given rights holder on a partially paid work until we receive this additional data. In the meantime, we've begun reviewing the data we've received in order to identify and resolve any errors or formatting issues in those files. Once that process is complete, we will ingest the data into our internal systems where we can analyze it further, begin our internal matching efforts, and prepare to make the data available to our members and the public. At that point, members will be able to search the data and submit claims where they have identified a use of their work and get paid the related royalties. Mike, do you want to take the next one?
Yeah. So second question is, how can I be sure my musical works are accurately represented in the MLC's database? Okay, so there are several ways to do this. If you're a member, you can use the MLC portal to verify the accuracy of your works. If you find any inconsistencies or mistakes, you can edit the works individually, or you can use our bulk work upload spreadsheet to update or register multiple works at a time. If you already have works data in a spreadsheet or an asset management system that can produce an export of your works data, you can also participate in the Data Quality Initiative, or DQI. The DQI was developed to provide publishers, administrators, other rights holders with a streamlined way to compare large schedules of their works against the MLC's data to ensure the MLC's data is consistent with theirs. So the MLC will provide DQI participants with reports that highlight the discrepancies between the two sets of data so that the rights holder can more easily address those discrepancies and improve the quality of the MLC's data. From there, you'll be able to confirm whether the data in your records or the data in the MLC's records need to be updated. If you're currently not an MLC member because your works are administered by another publisher or administrator, you can still access the MLC's database through our public search, and from there check the works data in the same way. But only a member is able to edit existing works or add new works, so you'll need to contact your publisher and ask them to correct the works data.
Okay, next question. What is the connection between the MLC and the Harry Fox Agency, HFA, and how does it affect my works registration? HFA is a privately owned company that provides services to the MLC as a vendor. One of those services is to share the musical works ownership information in their database with us. They have done this and will keep doing this on a continual basis. If you are a publisher or self-administered songwriter who regularly registers your works with HFA, you do not need to also register them with us. HFA will share their data with us. However, you do need to become a member of the MLC and set up your banking and contact details so that we can pay you the royalties we collect for your works under the blanket license. If you are a publisher or self-administered songwriter who has never registered your works with HFA, you are not required to do so. You should become a member of the MLC and register your works directly with us.
Okay, question number 4. Which DSP is the MLC collecting from? So any DSP that operates in the United States and offers a service that includes audio-only interactive streaming or downloads is eligible to secure a blanket license under the MMA. The service is required under the law to file a valid notice of license with the MLC. And those notices are published on our website, so you can see a full list of the DSPs from which the MLC will be collecting royalties. And I think we should be able to put that link in the chat. But every notice we receive from a DSP gets posted to our website, and you can actually view the details they provided related to the services and configurations that they intend to include under the license. And finally, question 5. When does the MLC collect and pay royalties? So the MLC is collecting royalties from the DSPs on a monthly basis. The DSPs account to us monthly and send all their recording usage data for each month. 45 days after the end of each monthly reporting period, the MLC is required to be in receipt of all the usage data so that we can complete the sound recording to musical works matching process and then invoice the DSPs for the royalties under the blanket. So for example, the January reporting period, our first reporting period, all DSP usage was due by March 17th. So from there, approximately 30 days after the DSP invoicing deadline, the MLC will provide statements and payments to our members. So our first royalty distribution will be in mid to late April. And then thereafter, we'll pay royalties on a monthly basis. And I think we can also post a link in the chat to our website and provide some additional information about the payment timeline. But yeah, I'll turn it back over to you, Maurice.
Great. And now we move on to the fun part, the Q&A. And I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mike, to introduce the tool we'll be using to help us determine what is the most important to the group and walk us through the process.
Okay, so yeah, as Maurice mentioned earlier, we're going to be using a crowdsourcing platform called Thought Exchange to facilitate the Q&A portion of the webinar. So just a quick rundown on what Thought Exchange is. Thought Exchange has essentially 3 steps. The first step is the share step. That's where you'll get to share your thoughts independently and anonymously. There's the second step, which is the star step. That's where you'll get the opportunity to rate thoughts of others that are joining us today. And finally, the third step, it's the discover step, and that's where everyone will get to see what's important to everyone as a group. So in a moment, you'll be able to participate. There'll be a QR code that will appear on the screen. Looks like that's happening now. We'll also drop a link in the chat. You won't need to download a Thought Exchange app or sign up for anything in order to participate. But once you're in the exchange, please share 1 to 3 questions you have about the MLC that you'd like us to answer today. You'll have the opportunity to rate the thoughts of others based on how much you agree. So 5 is strongly agree, 1 is strongly disagree. But definitely feel free to use the full range of stars to best reflect the group's priorities. And yeah, for anyone who might feel a little apprehensive about sharing thoughts in this type of setting, rest assured this is, again, confidential process, so your identity will not be known or associated with your thoughts or how you rate other thoughts. Okay, so we have the exchange up. Should just take a few minutes. I think now is a good time to get your phones and you can access the exchange that way. You'll just need to open up your camera and focus on the QR code. You don't need to take a picture, but a link should appear at the top of your screen. Or you can open up a web browser and go to tejoin.com and enter the 9-digit code you see on the screen there. And I believe my colleague Lacey has also dropped the link in the chat. So you can click on that link to access the exchange that way if you prefer. Okay, so we'll give everyone a minute or so here. But yeah, please start to add your questions that you'd like us to cover today. Again, these should be your top 1 to 3 questions. And we kindly ask that you please put your questions in the exchange rather than the chat. But if you do encounter any issues with the Thought Exchange platform, you can feel free to send that through the chat. Okay, we'll give everyone about another minute to get their questions and thoughts rated. Okay, we're about halfway through our time. So if you haven't yet moved on to the star or rating step, please do so now. Again, this is where you'll rate the thoughts of others who are participating, including your own. And this is where we'll get a sense of what is most important to the group. Okay, we have just about a minute left. Looks like we got some good questions coming in. So just with the remaining 45 seconds or so, just try to rate as many thoughts as you can. Okay, looks like time is up. So now our team will work in the background to categorize the thoughts. But while we're doing that, we wanted to share some helpful MLC resources with you. So I'll turn it back over to Maurice to walk you through that.
Yes, let's sharing my screen. Oops. Sharing my screen now. should be able to see my screen. Can you see the website, Mike? Or
Yes, I can.
okay, expanding it. So we just wanted to draw your attention or remind you of some of the resources that we have and where to find them on our website. We're obviously in our first distribution cycle, and I'm sure that many of you will have questions about royalties. Royalties will be distributed at the end of April for the month of January. That again is our first distribution. So if you go to our homepage and then go to how it works, and then blanket royalties, you'll see a lot of information about MLC royalty payments, including the timing and cadence. If you scroll down, information about the distribution cycle, how we handle adjustments, and importantly, I think for now is templates, layouts for statements. If you're curious to know what the statement information is going to contain, this is where you would go. We have two versions of statements. One is a very detailed layout that is at the sound recording level, and the other is a more summarized layout that is at the work level. So one work per DSP. So I encourage you to take a look at those layouts and familiarize yourself with them as the first distribution approaches. Another thing to review is the historical unmatched royalties, which I touched on earlier. If you want to get information about the royalties data that has been submitted to the MLC by DSPs that are taking advantage of this, of the historical unmatched royalty transfer in exchange for limitation of liability, you can come to this page and you'll see a list of the 20 DSPs, and you can even click into the hyperlinks here to get more information about the amounts that they transferred and what they were for. Also, in the How It Works section is the dispute policy for the MLC. If you would like to review a copy of the MLC's dispute policy, you can come here, and there's a link to review the policy. If you would like to know the DSPs that have filed notices with the MLC, you can go to the DSP notice section under How It Works, and you can see the various notices of license and review those as well. Also, as you're working in the portal and you have questions and you need assistance, you can click the help button, which is the question mark in the upper right-hand corner, to contact our support team. It will launch a email template that is pre-populated with your information. You can click a drop down in the topics field to identify the topic of your inquiry, and you can type out the inquiry here and then submit it to our team. Or if you prefer to speak with someone on the phone, you can contact them at the number above. We are here to help. The MLC support team is available 12 hours a day during weekdays and 9 hours a day on Saturdays. So that is 9 to 9 on weekdays, 9 to 9 Central Time, and 9 to 6 Central Time on Saturdays. And again, we are here to help. So I'm going to now jump back and see where we are with the next stage of our thought exchange. Our team is in the background working steadily to tabulate the results, and we should have those in just a moment. Okay, it looks like we had 19 participants in the Q&A, and we have about 19 thoughts. And I think we're going to be getting some more information in a second. 70% were from publishers or participants that identify as publishers. And I see that at least 45% of those participating are very familiar with the MLC. We can call those power users. 95% in total have some familiarity. And this is a word cloud that just shows some of the most common words that appeared in the thought exchange exercise. To if there's anything that jumps out. Of course, streaming is a big word that's jumped out in DSPs. Interestingly, I see the words far and back, and I wonder if that has to do with how far back royalties will be paid, and that's something that we'll touch on when we get to those questions, I'm sure. And the categories, surprise, surprise, the leading category involves thoughts and questions involving getting paid, followed by the portal, followed by what the MLC does and what it doesn't do. DSPs, and then registration data. Okay, let's start. We're going to do a few from each section so that we cover them, and then we'll circle back to, if we have time, to get whatever is remaining. So let's start with the first question. How far back does DSP data go? For example, will we get paid for songs streamed 5 years ago or more? What about songs or on Reverb Nation, SoundCloud? So the MLC blanket goes into effect as of January 1st, 2021, and we pay prospectively from there. However, we also have collected historical unmatched royalties and data, as I reviewed with you earlier. So it is possible that if you have royalties that are part of that amount, there's money there for you. And again, we will be ingesting that data, matching it, attempting to pay it out, and then whatever is not matched will be made available to you to review and claim. So it is possible that you may be entitled to prior period royalties that are included in the historical unmatched. What about songs and Reverb Nation and SoundCloud? I know that SoundCloud filed a notice of license, which you can review. In terms of Reverb Nation, I don't know off the top of my head if they were among those that filed notices. But again, that is something you should check on the website by looking at the notices of license. If they're not there, you should contact Reverb Nation directly. I think the next question is very similar, so we'll skip that one. Is there a minimum royalty amount before you will distribute? Yes, but it's fairly low. So for payments that are being made by ACH, Mike, what's the proper word for that? Direct deposit. I'm sorry. It's interesting that I remember ACH and not direct deposit. Says a lot about me. But for those, the minimum is $5, and for checks, I believe it's $25. Does that sound right to you, Mike?
For checks, I thought it was a little bit higher. I thought it was maybe.
Is it 100?
I thought it was 100, but we can confirm that.
Yes.
Get back.
And let's go to the last one. How much must I have in the bank before I'm paid? I think that relates to the prior question. So I think we can move on. The portal. Mike, do you want to take these?
Sure. Okay, first question is, as a member, can I have multiple publishing companies that I can control and can I have different bank sources to receive payments? Generally, it's a one-to-one relationship with the MLC membership and payments. So if you have a member account, that member account will have its own set of payment instructions. If there was another account that you as a publisher or administrator managed that had separate bank details, you would want to set up a separate member for that account. So there's that one-to-one relationship. The next.
Oh, sorry, you're jumping to the next one?
Yeah,
Go for it.
was there anything else that you wanted to cover on that?
No, I think you got it.
Okay. If you have an MLC login and need to manage multiple publisher accounts, what is the appropriate way to do that? So if I'm understanding the question correctly, so a user can, kind of what I alluded to in the earlier question, a user can manage multiple members. So my understanding is that you would have a single login as a user, but then when you logged in, you would be able to manage those multiple accounts. So there is a way to do that effectively under the MLC membership.
Right. So there's two levels. First, you're registering as a user, and then you add members that are affiliated with your user account. So you can have a one-to-many relationship between you as a user and the members that you administer. And I think that's important for administrators to be aware of. Okay. How do we get paid for our music being streamed in podcasts? You know, the MLC licenses digital music services, and it administers a compulsory license. In many cases, music that's streamed in podcasts doesn't fall under the compulsory. So it's not necessarily likely to be something that we administer. And podcasts are typically not tied to a digital service. So that's something that you may want to follow up with the streaming companies that might be approaching you for licenses, or with your attorney. Next question. How did the MLC arrive at its current payment for mechanical royalties due? Not completely sure what you mean, but you seem to be asking a question about the royalty rates. Those are all established by statute. The MLC doesn't set royalty rates. It administers licenses and pays the rates in the statute. The statutory rates are established by the Copyright Royalty Board, which is a 3-member tribunal that's appointed by the Register of Copyrights, and they set the royalty rates. Next question. Does the blanket license have a specific fee? Well, it seemed to be multiple questions, but the answer is no. There's no commission or fee as a rights holder receiving royalties from the MLC. There is nothing that you need to pay to join. There's nothing that's deducted from your royalties when we pay you dollar for dollar what we collect. It's important to know that the MLC is not funded by publishers. It is funded by the digital services, and that is why you do not pay a fee or commission. The second part of that question was how I'm paid per play. Is it like radio? Not exactly sure what you mean, but there is a royalty calculation that is basically based on percentage of revenue type models, and then the royalty pool is then prorated by usage based on a per play rate that comes from that calculation. Anything to add there, Mike?
No, I think you got it all.
Okay. One DSP question. Explain how the MLC was able to receive DSP distributions this past January. What happened to those mechanicals before the MLC existed? The MLC was created by the Music Modernization Act of 2018, and the current structure that we operate under, and the way that the licenses work, the way that we collect and distribute it, is all tied to the MMA statute. Licensing and royalties were handled differently before. Some would say not very well. And there was a failure on the part of the DSPs to accurately license and pay for many of the much of the content that appeared on their services, and that led to the creation of the MLC. Want to take that one?
Sure. So first question here is, I've noticed inaccuracies in info uploaded by different publishers, writers on the portal. How do these get resolved? And there was a follow-up. Do you look at the official registration in DMI, SCAP, etc.? So yeah, in terms of the first part there, any inaccuracies that you as a publisher or administrator identify can be, I guess there's a couple options. You are able to update an existing registration in the portal. So if you find a work or several works that need to be updated, there's a possibility that you can update those works self-service and update those works yourself. If it requires the attention of our support team, because perhaps there's not your claim overlaps with another claim and it becomes more of an overclaim issue, those can be reported to our support team at support@themlc.com. But those would be the two ways to update existing registrations that have inaccuracies. As I mentioned earlier, there actually is a third way. You could, if you find inaccuracies, you could actually use the bulk work upload spreadsheet to update multiple works. But I think the most effective ways are either updating the works within the portal itself or reporting those issues if it is multiple works to our support team. Do you look at the official registrations in BMI ASCAP? Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, I guess, what look at the official registrations means, but you know, we don't use those to you know, render our registrations in the portal. Those are sent in by publishers and administrators who are authorized to submit claims. If it's something that we need to research internally, yeah, we have, you know, several resources, including the PRO resources, where we'll use to kind of validate and check existing claims.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on that. It is important to emphasize that we rely on authoritative data from our members in terms of musical works registration. So it is important that you play your part, you know, keep your works up to date, review them, make sure that they're accurate, so that the database is in the best shape possible for everyone.
Second question is, I'm a member, but also control writer shares of songs. How do I add IPI numbers for my writers and also add them to songs that they are not properly listed on? So that's similar to the first question, in that there are a couple of different ways to update IPI information as well. So you could edit that information within the portal yourself. So there's that self-servicing aspect. If you found that there were IPI numbers missing across an entire catalog or an entire across a particular writer, again, you could report those to our support team, support@themlc.com, and we can coordinate internally on getting those updated. Okay, should we do one more from this section?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can finish this section because I think we've been pretty much going through all of the questions.
Okay.
Well, it sounded like you were starting, so go for it.
So in the reverse, do I need to register my writer's works with HFA if I've already registered them with the MLC? I'm a member of both. So the answer there, I think Maurice touched on this earlier, but the answer is no. So I think, yeah, Maurice touched on, per our vendor agreement, we have a two-way data sharing relationship with HFA. So you only have to deliver to one or the other, but not both. So if you are submitting via CWR to HFA and that's working, you can continue to do that. The data will be replicated in the MLC portal. If you're updating works, for example, in the MLC portal, or either individually or through that bulk upload spreadsheet that I mentioned, that data will be transferred back to HFA. So just one, but not both. I'll let you take the next one.
A lot of registration questions. As a publisher, how do you update the registered publisher for a song? We're a new company and taking over publishing for a few artists. If you're taking over an existing member's musical works because of a acquisition or LOD, you should contact support at the MLC for assistance. All right. I have a publishing company and also release music under my own name. Do I have to set myself up in my own company name? What about lyrics? Are they covered? Okay, so we got multiple questions here. If you're a self-administered songwriter and you control your works, you have the right to collect on your own behalf, then you can register as a member with the MLC and you can register in your name. You don't have to have a company, it's your choice. But the most important thing is to be sure that the works that you register are works that you are entitled to collect on and that you have not given administration rights to any third parties. The next question is, what about lyrics? We do not license lyrics. Those are not part of the compulsory mechanical license. So I think that's it for that one. Anything to add, Mike?
That sounds good.
Let's move on to the next one. Is there any mechanism on the MLC for preserving our right of first recording, not allowing a blanket license automatically? Many of our new classical music scores haven't yet been recorded, but I understand we should also be keeping our catalog up to date with the MLC. Well, I mean, that's an interesting question, and it's a little more complicated. That might be something that you should reach out to us to discuss outside of the webinar. Unlike in the world of individual licensing, the blanket license sort of covers everything. So there isn't the mechanics for administering first use work a little bit differently, and also the terms for that are a little different than what you might be used to in the past regarding how the statute is written. So I think we would need to get a little bit more understanding in the specifics in order to assist you with that. So please contact support@themlc.com.
Okay. Next question is, how can I publish my own music? Is registering with a PRO as a publisher enough to qualify me as a publisher? In terms of MLC membership, really anyone who is entitled to receive digital audio mechanical royalties in the United States can and should become a member of the MLC. So that includes music publishers, administrators, ex-US collective management organizations, self-administered songwriters. So we don't really distinguish between the rights holder type. If you're entitled to receive those digital audio mechanical royalties you're authorized to collect on your behalf, then you can become a member with the MLC. Do you want to take that last one, Maurice?
The last one. Let's see. In Germany, editions are common. That is, administering works on behalf of a label's catalog who may not be a publisher. How do I register these? The catalog would like their name listed and not the publishers. Example is Coffee Cup label administering by XYZ Publishing. I mean, I think what it all comes down to is who is the entity, and does the entity have rights to collect digital audio mechanicals in the US? It doesn't necessarily have to be a publisher. As I mentioned before, it could be a self-administered songwriter, it could be a CMO. It could be any entity that has the right to collect. The key thing is being sure that you have those rights prior to registering as a member. If you have more questions, you should definitely reach out to us at support@themlc.com for further assistance.
And Maurice, just to circle back to one of the earlier
questions.
No, just actually on the getting paid payments question that came up earlier about minimum payments. So I was able to confirm that it's $5 for direct deposit, $100 for check, $250 for wire transfer.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow, have we gotten through all the questions? It's rare that happens. I guess that winds things up for today. It was great having the opportunity to present the MLC to you and answer your questions. We'll continue to do this. We'll be back again next month. So please join us and have a great weekend.
Thank you.